Hello and welcome to TechRaptor. Today we are discussing the whole season of Fallout. That's right, it dropped in a day. We watched it in a day. We're going to be here today to talk about the full season. We're going to start with some spoiler-free stuff and then move steadily into spoiler stuff. But for now, my name is Andrew. I am the Senior Content Manager here at TechRaptor.
Andrew Otten, Editor-in-Chief.
Tyler Chansey, tabletop writer and insomniac, apparently.
Austin Souther, staff writer.
All right. So we've seen the full 8 episodes, approximately 8 hours. Starting with the spoiler-free talk, how did Austin? How did you think it was? What was the highlights of the season?
Yeah. Look, I'm a big Fallout fan, at least for the Fallout 3 through Fallout 4. Excluding new 76 specifically. And as a fan, I would say that they stayed pretty respectful to the source material. Like, obviously we can't expect them to adhere to everything, but I think they did a great job creating the world, the vibe of Fallout, kind of putting some elements from the games into the show as well. I think that even if you don't like Fallout, or not, if you haven't played it, you might. Yeah, so if you haven't played it, you'll still probably get some enjoyment out of it. But I think for the most part, you get a lot more if you're a fan, and it's just really cool to see it come to life in the real world after all this time.
Yeah, definitely. Tyler, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I do have to echo the same sentiment that they did a really good job not just making something for the fans and nobody else. Like this season is just a great introduction to the world, and they got really good actors. They got really good actors and really good performances there. And there's a lot of very compelling character development, character work, and character dynamics that happen throughout the show. It makes it very watchable. So yeah, even if you're not really a big sci-fi fan, or some of the more interesting elements of the series kind of weirds you out, I would still really recommend watching this. So yeah.
I felt like every single time Walton Goggins was on the screen, I was enamored. The dude had plot armor to shit, but just so entertaining. There was nothing that he could not do with just minimal effort, and it was fantastic watching him work.
I also really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Ella Purnell as Lucy, because it's very easy to make a character like that very annoying, and yet she works so well, and I really liked seeing how she developed.
Yeah. Otten, what did you think of the first season?
I think it's a great show. Much better than the games. It actually tells a good story. It has good characters and stuff. But no, what's great about it, like you said, I think as an adaptation of something, it might do. I mean, it's hard to compare it to something like The Last of Us, because that's just a 1-to-1 essentially of the game.
Mm-hmm.
But Fallout, I think, does an incredible job of adapting a setting and universe to the screen, better than almost any other game adaptation I could think of, where it just keeps the tone and irreverence of Fallout and the setting, and it tells a whole new story, and they kind of nail it. They don't have to rely on, all right, we're going to basically steal a couple plot lines from a game or a couple quest lines or something and fancy them up. This is all new stuff, and they obviously knew the source material really well.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a great job.
I think I mentioned very briefly when we were discussing the pilot episode that the Fallout series is more driven by its setting and more by your experience with it, more so than the plot line. Like, you play a new Fallout not to see the characters. You go there because, oh, you're going to DC, or oh, you're going to Nevada, or oh, you're now in Boston.
Yeah, after you said that in our first episode, I did keep thinking about that as we were watching, and it really kind of felt like, it wasn't, as you said, like Last of Us. It was like an excellent 1-to-1 adaptation. But this this is probably just, coming from a very nerdy, TTRPG, D&D nerd perspective. But like, it feels like, they had the source books, they had all of the source material, and they crafted a really excellent campaign for 3 characters or 4 characters.
And the players came with like extensive backstories and stuff they wanted to do, and actively communicate with the DM, and they're like, let's go on a journey together.
Yeah. So Austin, you and I chatted a bit before, and you really wanted to highlight some of the design aesthetics. Do you want to go into that a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned this probably in the previous podcast, but just like seeing all the different Easter eggs in there, like mentions of like all the different food items and the companies and the advertisements. I mean, that is Fallout, right? That brings that world to life. So, you know, seeing like that Nuka-Cola cooler in the show, or like heck, I even noticed in one part, I think it was in episode 2. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but a character is in a building, and I saw on the table the Wasteland Survival Guide, which is one of the magazines that you can collect from the Fallout games. I'm like, yes, I would grab that shit, because you know you're gonna get like a skill point or something from it.
You're gonna need it. Pick it up.
I'm surprised there wasn't a moment Lucy's like, "Oh, this is fucking useful. Thanks." Like,
yeah,
I could use this.
no,
feel
I mean
so
that'd be
much
great.
smarter.
Right?
So what you're telling me is there isn't a scene where a character picks up a bobblehead and suddenly develops spider sense or something?
Oh, dude, that'd be great, wouldn't it?
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, like, if you pay attention to the surroundings, then you'll find a lot of cool things, and I just love how much attention and detail they put into it all.
One thing that I really enjoyed throughout the whole thing was that there's a lot of times in shows and media where hyperviolence and dark humor feel like it's hyperviolent for the point of feeling edgy.
Yeah.
But I feel like this really, again, it nails the tone. It nails the tone for a Fallout player. Like, you know, I just replayed a whole bunch of Fallout New Vegas this week for myself. But, you know, the number of like exploding heads, dismembering limbs was ridiculous. But I think even for fans or for newcomers who aren't already fans, because because all the hyperviolence is paired with dark humor, and it's paired with that kind of like nonchalant nature of like, well, I'll just inject a stim pack and then like let's just roll on with the story and never address it again, where another series would have a character limping for the next 3 episodes. It really kind of gives you that idea of like, oh, pain isn't really pain. Like it doesn't quite have the same.
I think.
I mean, there are some sections where you do see some persistent damage to some characters, which did maybe look away in spots. But you know the scenes I'm talking about.
Yeah. But before we move on from the spoiler-free discussion, is there anything else that you guys would like to bring up?
I just want to tack on to your talk about the violence, because I think with a lot of adaptations, like there's a video game stuff, like there's a crazy violent stuff that happens because games in general are violent, right?
Different mediums.
More often. And like you said, they kind of, it's violent for violence sake a lot of times in this. But Fallout, I think I was sitting here, so I have a piece that comes out, it's coming out today, the same thing as this that I've written, where I do talk about some, like I think Fallout might be, from my mind, and there might be some others if I haven't seen them or not coming to mind, that like adapts like the gaming combat in a way on screen better than anything I've seen. Because like Fallout's wacky, like you do weird shit. Like there's a gun where they shoot a fucking baby arm through somebody's eye, and like it fits. Like part of it just fits with the humor. Like they just do just weird stuff that doesn't really stand out because it's all with they do such a good job of creating a tone and vibe and irreverence and like surrealistic thing going on with Fallout that it just fits. And I think it really does give you the best sense, I think, of like, oh, this is kind of like what playing the game is like adapted to the screen as much as they could. Because I mean, I don't know if we're gonna see a fat man or something someday, but that would be wild.
You know, I did see a mini nuke. I saw a mini nuke. So
I don't know. But
I do agree with you, because I think I know the action sequence you're talking about where, like I could easily imagine, you know, give or take a couple of days, it's the internet after all, I can imagine somebody doing like an edit of that particular sequence and putting the VATS overlay on some of the shots. Like I could see that
do a great job at it. Yeah.
Hey, you guys know that perk Bloody Mess in Fallout, where if you shoot somebody, they have like a chance to explode in the most absolutely horrendous way possible. I think Walton Goggins' character may have specced into that.
He might have.
There's
Yeah.
there's definitely a time in the first episode where he shoots someone like in the chest, and there's just like an explosion of blood out the top of the head, and it's like, okay,
Good times. That's just good stuff.
Fun for the whole family.
But yeah, moving away from the spoiler-free chat, I'm going to go ahead and enable our spoiler warning now. So if you still want to stick around, we're going to chat just general plot stuff, and then we're going to go deeper into the character development. So really, the longer you stay, the more is going to get spoiled. But without further ado, I kind of want to start this myself. We talked about how Jonathan Nolan was the Westworld guy. I loved how much of that DNA of Westworld was just consistently throughout this. Looking at the promotional media, I thought this is totally going to be each of the three characters start in different walks of life and end up together, and then they like find a mutual quest. I absolutely loved that there was only like 2 points where all three of them were at the same point at any time. And that was in like the second episode and in the last episode. And just how they kept like appearing and disappearing, and it was like they were doing a dance around this MacGuffin item that was really the core of this adventure.
The Maltese Falcon of the Wasteland.
A great item. I loved it.
You know, in some ways, I had a few problems with that aspect. Like, I absolutely love how when they come together and they interact and all that, but I felt like travel maybe was a little too easy in some ways. But that's kind of hard to capture in the show. It just it actually made the world feel a little small. Like, and I don't know, like maybe they have some way to track each other, but I don't know.
I mean, they kind of lampshaded it by basically, showing that, okay, they're kind of in the same general area on the country. Like the only time they had to kind of justify it is with the vertibirds, because in the first episode, it's mentioned that, the Brotherhood, the Maximus is part of, is apparently in like the Commonwealth. So it's like, okay, we got to head to the West Coast because MacGuffin ahoy.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of justification. It isn't like they suddenly all had fast travel or something.
It's just like sometimes, and I don't want to like start talking bad about the show because I actually really enjoyed it, but I think it was really convenient that a lot of them would end up in the same place the characters were in like a previous scene, like like at the gas station where one character with a head was, and then Walton Goggins' character appears at that same exact gas station later, and it's very convenient. I had a little problem with that, but like
I don't know. Like they establish with him like he's good at what he does.
He's good at tracking.
He's the best bounty hunter ever, essentially. And Lucy had the fucking thing programmed in her Pip-Boy of like, I can just follow it whenever I want. I know where to go.
It does make sense for Lucy.
Yeah, exactly. There's just enough little asides, little lampshades, little moments where you're like, okay, you could see how they would feasibly get there eventually.
And like Maximus just was lucked into people just showing up to him.
Yeah,
more or less.
Well, no, because Maximus and Thaddeus had the radar.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
When they first had the disembodied head.
That's right.
So it was kind of, we had Cooper Howard tracking as like a cowboy tracker. We had the very science techie people using a Geiger meter to follow it, and then Lucy just simply had a tracker in it.
Okay, you know what? You've
convinced me. Bullshit, guys. We've established this.
I retract my criticism.
No,
you made a good point.
I will say though, if we are kind of getting into good faith critiques, this is something that I was thinking about like about halfway through the season, because the first couple episodes, we have our MacGuffin, we have the scientist, we have the thingamadoodle he took, and we have the missing father, and I'm like, okay, a very boilerplate Fallout plot. There's a thing over there, go get it. And like the first like 2 or 3 episodes, there's a lot of that sort of forward momentum. It's like, okay, they're trying to get here. This is in their way. They keep going, and then like halfway through, suddenly or slowly, they start branching off and start going like, okay, we got to go and do this first, or I need to go and handle this first, or, oh dear, this has happened, I need to do that. And I knew the exact moment I realized, oh boy, this might be bad, or it might be good. It's that bit where like Cooper breaks off and he says, I think he flat out says, the wasteland has its own golden rule. Thou shalt get sidetracked by bullshit at every turn. And the first thought in my head is,
good.
oh my god, are they making fun of the side quest stuff in the games?
Yeah.
Is that canon now?
That's great. Yeah.
And I enjoyed the lampshade, but I could definitely feel the forward momentum of the progression of the subplots and everything start to slow down in the second half, and it started feeling a bit plotting for me. You know, going at episodes 4, 5, and 6, and then 7 was mostly set up for the finale, and that was like where I'm like, okay, you're kind of running out of gas, but I'm still interested because your characters are good, but that might be like the closest thing to like a criticism I'd say I'd have.
Yeah, I had the exact opposite feeling with those last. I feel like the MacGuffin head was what, you know, was enough like bait on the hook to pull me into the story. And then once I started to know these characters, those later episodes being how we watched some of them like double down or evolve on their kind of, you know, core character ideals, and then like giving that extra plot around the world, then meant that, you know, by the end of it, you know, I started caring about what the deal was with the head, and then I ended up caring about the characters. And then when it got to the end again with the head, and I'm like, oh yeah, this MacGuffin is here.
well, I should specify, like the stuff you're talking about, the characters, that is still fantastic. That is still great. That's still what buoys it. But I'm talking about some of the side plots and the subplots that were accompanying it, because that I felt like was starting to slow down, and they were really starting to, you know, beat around the bush when it came to it. The big thing for me was the whole Vault 33, Vault 32 election subplot, you know, and the big mystery around Vault 31. Like that whole thing was just okay. It's like okay, we cut back to them. 2 minutes of kind of nothing. Okay, back to the interesting stuff. Cut back to them. 2 more minutes of maybe a smidgen of plot development. Okay, back to the stuff we care about. That's where I felt like it kind of lost me in terms of momentum.
Yeah, again, I totally disagree. That
Wow,
Book
okay.
31
Yeah.
subplot was really interesting. I was not, for all of the promotional material and stuff, for them to have like a secret fourth protagonist be a part of this. I think that dove into an aspect of Fallout that we only ever get to slightly touch on. Is like the fucked up natures of the Vault, and that then
The
hand in
Vault-Tec social
hand with
experiments.
that hand in hand with, you know, getting to see Maximus try to adapt to Vault 4, which is an even more screwed up Vault-Tec experiment. Those all you know, really intrigued me and kept me clicking. And I watching through this, that's when I kind of messaged, you know, the rest of you guys, saying that I'm disappointed that this isn't going to be a series that is released week after week after week, because there will be no time for any fans to go to Reddit, to go to forums, to start group chats with their friends and coworkers to be like, oh my God, what do you think is happening? What's this?
Yeah.
Like, could it be that? You know, the more knowledgeable Fallout person being like, I don't know, maybe synths. Like, it would just.
I won't lie. At one point, I did speculate that there could be some synth bullshit going on.
Well, you see that. I think I got that message from you, and I was thinking, I think that may have actually negatively affected my whole feeling when it came to the Vault subplot, because in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, they're building up to the big reveal with the social experiments, and I'm like, okay. But then it felt like still, I don't know why, it just didn't really grip me when it came to what the characters could have been doing. And I feel like if it was released weekly, that would have been much more of a deliberate slow boil. Like, what is going on? What is happening? But because we, you know, basically watched it together in the span of a long weekend, I'm like, okay, are we like you know, I'm watching the clock. Like, okay, you're burning up screen time. You know, get to the point. Now, thankfully, it does get to the point, and it's one big freaking point.
Yeah. Well, I think the big reveal of what's happening with the 3 vaults together. But I think also what's great about those scenes in the vault is that it's an obvious setup to be like, because the whole point of, I guess I don't really want to get too much into the ending yet, but part of the point of what Vault-Tec's doing is like, well, we have the best solution for the future, and our people that we have in the vaults are the best for that. And the best recourse for that is to wipe out everybody on the surface. And we have the best idea for how humanity should continue. But you're seeing stuff in the vault, and then you're seeing all the fucked up shit. And it's like, is it really that much better? Like, it seems like we're democratic and whatever, but it's also just, it's fucked up in its own way.
Mhm.
And I think you're seeing that compared to the Wasteland stuff.
Yeah, as Stretch kind of mentioned before, it's that sort of stuff that's in the deep lore Fallout that's implied or something that you have to dig up and find for yourself. And here it is in the forefront of the show.
But to your point of I wish it was episodic too, which is weird because Amazon largely has done it that way with all their big shows.
Yeah, they
Where
did
they
it
do
for
a
Lord of the
weekly
Rings.
release. Yeah,
They've done it for The Boys. For
The Boys is all
Invincible.
weekly. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that is a bit of a bummer with it.
Didn't they do that for Lord of the Rings as
Yeah.
well? Yeah.
it's a
I
great
can't
point.
think-
I'm glad you bring that up.
I can't think of a major show where they didn't do it because the dropping everything at once has been a Netflix thing largely.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
and it kind of suffered for it, but that's neither here nor there.
It certainly feels like it's structured in a weekly format, which I guess they even have
Definitely is.
recaps at the beginning, which I mean,
Yeah.
so
It's true.
I wonder if they changed like strategy in the middle of it, or I don't know.
I'm sure somebody gave them some reason to do it, but I think they could have had because it's such a well done show that they could have enjoyed a couple months of discussion instead of what might be a week.
Yeah. Especially since I think Austin, you and I were kind of on the same wavelength here. It's because it was a binge model. Talking over my own words here. You notice some of the cracks and some of the deviations, some of the cul-de-sacs a bit more, which are few and far between. But well, are you going to say it or should I? I think we did kind of discuss a bit about it. The subplot you mentioned before in Vault 4 with Maximus and Lucy, great character stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in it that just kind of goes nowhere. Like the whole Colton Moldaver, it just sort of a one and done sort of thing. Like it just didn't really, hit. It just kind of felt like a complete 180 in terms of what happened.
So was it like you feel like the Vault 4 and what happened there, like it happened, but it didn't do anything to progress the greater plot?
Well, basically, to an extent, yeah, it was basically filler, but good character filler. I really enjoyed the character study with Maximus and how once he was given everything he needed to live and be happy, he just lost ambition. He was just like, you know what, this is nice. And it was nice to, kind of see that, and then see that paired with Lucy, who has developed a healthy amount of cynicism, investigating things and getting messed up. But it just, I don't know why. I don't know why. On the one hand, the big reveal will happen with Vault 4 was a nice change of pace compared to what happened before, but it still felt sort of. It didn't really have a whole lot of. It didn't really have a whole lot going forward with it, and I think the big sticking point for me is the whole Moldaver cult, where they're worshiping her, doing the whole blood ritual thing, and it's like, oh my god, this is messed up. That this is part of the vault. This is the best thing about the vault. No, it's not. It's not. It was just a thing that happened, and now we're gonna have to ask you politely to leave because you're ignorant of our ways. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I feel like that was. I totally agree. I mean, thinking about it, really the cult of Moldaver thing didn't really amount to anything. I think that the Vault 4 was that felt to me like the show, the property looking directly at the people who have never looked into, never engaged in Fallout before and said, look at all this weird shit. Just kind of like as a prompt to, they weren't wanting to make the vault that we started in the most screwed up one. So here, let's show you a really messed up one, and then they even like referenced and listed off some of the other messed up experiments.
I think it's just, again, just not to repeat myself, it's just another example of like the hubris of thinking that they have the answers. Because like this Vault 4 is the one where when they show in the past, that's the one Cooper's doing the advertisement for it, and they're talking about, oh, this is the scientists are going to lead it, and you think, oh, obviously scientists will do a good job. It's like, no, they devolved into some fucking bullshit, just their own flavor of it, and that's kind of what the show's showing, is like that arrogance and where it leads you. That's what I agree with the cult, because it never was really addressed again, and like there wasn't like culty stuff at her headquarters, like anything around her. So that part was odd, but I think the point of the vault again was, I think it just shows the great, like, it's particularly when they went out of their way to be like, oh, these fucking wastelanders fucking suck, dude. They're all weird. that we let live in here. He's all like, it's like, oh, okay. Like,
conversation with the overseer was wild.
Yeah. So it's just obvious that they're pitting them against each other and showing you, like, yeah, they both suck in their own ways.
Do you think that it was a stroke of genius or pure accident that the overseer is the same actor who plays Jerry the father in Rick and Morty?
Oh, I put that together immediately. Like, I heard talking, I'm like, is that Jerry?
Yeah.
For that level of like deadpan, like what a loser kind of energy.
He's the best. It was great casting.
So moving on to the main characters themselves, I kind of want to take a look over the course of the entire season, what we thought of each character from where they started to where they were, and I've kind of got my own thoughts about all of them. But starting off with Lucy, how do we think that Lucy progressed throughout the story, Otten?
I mean, she's probably what we would call the main protagonist of all of them, right? Probably what we spend the most time with. I think they handle her pretty well, because she's kind of this heart of gold person, and she's the fish out of water that we get to learn the world through, obviously. But she is a pretty realistic person, and then that she learns a lesson is like, oh yeah, I will remember that, because that fucking's crazy. And like she constantly comments on that, like everybody here's like, what the fuck are you guys all doing? This is nuts. This doesn't make sense. Everything's so nice where I was from. But her coming to grips with what the reality of what the world is like is done really well, I think. And I think that partly because she runs into Cooper so often, spends time with him, who's obviously, he's very world weary, been around for a while.
Jaded.
It worked really well with her seeing coming to realization of how things work. Particularly, I mean, when her whole everything gets shattered at the last episode.
Yeah.
Sucked for her.
Austin, I know that you wanted to specifically bring up and talk about Lucy when she was in the Super Duper Mart, and how that affected your view on the series. So explain a bit of that.
Did I bring that up?
I think that may have been me.
Oh, sorry. No, Tyler. Yeah, I'm just misreading my own notes.
Oh dear. Do you think just because the both of us have beards, we're interchangeable now?
That's it. All you white guys look alike. all of you smooth skins.
But yes, honestly, Lucy, the episode with Lucy in the Super Duper Mart, for me, that was the moment where I was enjoying the show, but the minute that episode kind of concluded with Lucy, it was like, okay, this show is great. Because as we were kind of discussing before, there's a lot of darkness and a lot of suppositions and a lot of idealism getting kneecapped throughout the show. And in the back of my head, I kept thinking, okay, is this going to be actual nuance and actual discussion and actual good character texture, or is this going to be Amazon Video mandated? Well, the boys is nihilistic and miserable. Let's make everything nihilistic and miserable. Because no, seriously, that was the thought in my head.
Yeah.
Because up to that point in the show, Lucy was just this wide-eyed, naive idiot that just kind of bumbled her way through things and getting the taste knocked out of her mouth every other episode and surviving only by the skin of her teeth. And then she falls hook, line, and sinker. The Super Duper Mart, gets tranked by the robot and everything. And it's like, okay, here we go again. But then something interesting happens where she doesn't completely, get rid of her ideals and get rid of her morals. She kind of stands up and, saves these people in this harvesting area. and then helps out Cooper. Like, he gets him the drugs he needs to keep living, and just golden rule, motherfucker, and leaves. And I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I love this character now. Like, and like for me, a worse show would have been like, you're right, don't care about anything, survival of the fittest, and I would have lost all engagement. But with her, it's like, yeah, it sucks, but I'm still here and I'm still doing the right thing. Okay, now you have my attention fully.
Well, I think to also add on to that she's also burned for making the good choice. Well, they're like, hey, they're like, we don't release those ones. She's like, no, fucking release everybody, you piece of shit. And he's like, well, no, those ghouls are a little too far gone. Like, it's not a good idea.
Exactly. Like she did the good thing and saved those people, and they got it, and she didn't get a thank you. Like, thank you. Like, hey, I'm a good person. Then she went a little too far. It's like, okay.
Well,
You know,
it's just it's another example of her being naive with how things are.
Which does change over time. Like, she learns not to let her her heart bleed so much, if that makes any sense.
Well, I don't know if that part of her changes. I think that stays the same. She just realizes the potential consequences of certain choices now.
Mhm.
Yeah,
where she's like, yes, I could still make the right choice, but it's like, oh yeah, there's some unintended shit that I've already had to deal with. That I'm like, I'll be a little more cautious now.
Yeah, but it's still development that's earned. It's not a betrayal.
I agree.
Of character.
I think that is definitely the inflection point of her character. Of like, oh, okay, this is where we get to see finally she gets to get a little bit more agency for herself after getting the shit kicked out for 4 episodes or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know what I find interesting is that usually, we play as vault dwellers in, like, I guess 2 of the games, but we don't get a great look at like what they're like in the wasteland, because we always play as ourselves in Fallout. But to see like an actual, like, I guess you could look at her as an NPC and just she behaves the way a vault dweller would on the surface, leads to some pretty unintentionally hilarious like situations and misunderstandings that I think capture it really well. Like, she's basically an alien to these wastelanders. That's how
well, they're like a joke.
Yeah,
in the first episode, they're like, "You're a fucking vault dweller." She just starts laughing at her. Like, are you kidding me?
Would you like some water? Grabs the canteen, drains the whole canteen, gives her back the bottle.
I mean, I gotta say, replaying the start of New Vegas this past weekend as well, it never really dawned on me how weird it is that you emerge from this vault, know absolutely nothing about the world, show up in, well, I guess you don't in New Vegas. But in the games where you do come out of the vault, you show up to a settlement and someone's like, "Oh, I've been having all these troubles," and you're just like, "I can help." It's like, who the fuck are you just walking into this town saying, "Oh, let me help with all your problems"? In that way, I kind of feel like playing as it, you really are doing the same kind of thing that Lucy did. It's like, oh, you've got to take his head. Okay, sure, I'll take his head.
Like, it's a show where it's like, what's with the sanctimonious, do-gooder in the yellow and blue jumpsuit that smells well and has perfect hair? What's going on with this Joker?
Yeah, and they do make
they
do make that comment. I think I can't remember if like many people comment on you being a vault dweller in 3 or 4, but. Yeah, I mean, if I can't think of an example, then I mean, obviously, I don't capture it as well as the show, in my opinion. So,
before I want to go back to that supermarket with the robot and just shout out Matt Berry and how beautiful that man is.
Yes,
I love him. I love that he's getting just shoehorned into more and more projects. Because I'm like, just do every movie. He should be in every movie and TV show, and I'll be happy, even if it's the same character. Because I mean, he plays some feeling of, if you've seen What We Do in the Shadows, he plays some version of Laszlo feeling in a way. I'm fine with that.
That's I mean, even if you go back to IT Crowd,
well, go back there. Yeah, so it's like I'm cool with that. Like, if he's just in everything, that's cool. I
love the bit of commentary as well. It's like, like, to make a quick buck, I sold my voice rights to this robot. And you know what they did? They didn't pay me more. They gave me one of the robots. Do you think that I want to walk into my own house and have me greet me?
Yeah, hear my voice every day.
Honestly, that was one of the best scenes. I love the pre-war stuff, or the bomb stuff in the show. Perhaps even more than like the actual wasteland things. But I think we'll probably touch on that later, won't we?
Well, it's a strength of adaptation. As we all said, as we played the games, it's the aftermath. It's after everything has gone to hell in a handbasket. So, the pre-war stuff, the pre-bomb stuff is, that's the meat for us.
Yeah. So moving on from Lucy, Maximus started bottom of the totem pole, and oh my god, he failed upwards.
No kidding.
Yes, he did.
So what did we think of Maximus's growth or potentially lack thereof throughout the show? Tyler, I'll throw this one to you.
I found Maximus entertaining to an extent because he just read to me as that kind of player, as that kind of character archetype that's just purely reactive and just out for himself, and he'll say and do whatever he needs in order to have any modicum of comfort. And they don't hide that at all when it comes to his character. Like, the first, we talked about this more in the pilot episode, but it's like, why did you join the Brotherhood? So I could hurt the people who hurt me. Like, that's his motivation. There's, that's his motivation. And you notice that, like, throughout the entire series, like, he gets the power armor, sweet. Now I can, start busting some heads, or
even when the first thing that he does is use it improperly, and then he figures out that there's flamethrowers, and he's smiling again.
Yeah, exactly. And for me personally, I thought that was like a great sort of like commentary on like the authoritarian attitude the Brotherhood of Steel always kind of has, but the games rarely, interrogate. New Vegas is the closest one, I think. Like, Maximus doesn't really feel, he kind of feels very much like that quintessential boy pretending to be a man and just wanted to have the biggest stick in the yard. And I appreciated that development and how through his interactions with Lucy, he starts developing a bit of a conscience, which is why, as much as I think the scene you're talking about.
I was gonna rebuke you that I don't think that he has a conscience at all. I think that he is absolutely spineless, and that boy will drink whatever Kool-Aid you put in front of him.
Yeah,
he has no conviction.
Or oysters.
I agree. I agree that doesn't change.
So okay. So can we at least argue that So we can at least argue that the act of him, I guess. Okay, actually, now I'm thinking about it. He didn't give the fusion core back. He gave it back after he stole it. So never mind. Yeah,
he was convinced to, and like the stuff with where he does, where it does seem like he's being a little selfless or being helpful to Lucy. It's like, no, that's also him being selfish about that relationship. Yeah. And this is finally someone that's been nice to me, and I want to keep that for me. So, like, at first I had that reaction. I was like, oh, so Maximus is kind of growing. But then I thought about it. I was like, no, fuck this guy. He's still just in it for himself. And he just sees Lucy as like, oh, that's just a good thing in my life that I want to keep going. And as much as helping her is a good thing sometimes. Yes, and he was living it up in Vault 4 for a minute. He was loving it.
It was maddening. It really is maddening. This character that's basically screw you, got mine. But over time, it's less screw you, got mine, and more got mine.
Yeah, see, and I think you make a good point where there's like a different kind of naivete with him that's not like Lucy's, where he's like, oh, this will solve all my problems if I get this power armor, and I'm a knight. And he becomes a knight and gets to treat his buddy, a squire, like shit and enjoys it. But then he does start feeling kind of bad about it. Yeah. But not too bad because he's...
he's not a complete sociopath, but...
No.
Well, no, it's not that he's going to feel bad. It's that he knows if they go back, he's going to get caught.
That's true.
Again,
Actually, you're right. He doesn't feel bad. It's
he's
a
like
manipulation of like, I need to win him to my side because I'm fucked.
He does say we have to get our stories straight, and
yes,
that's when the squire was like, "Oh hell no, I'm not doing this."
But he still confessed. He still confessed to Thaddeus. It's just Thaddeus is like, "Screw you."
He confessed after he branded him.
Yeah.
He
thought he had Thaddeus's trust.
Yeah. Well, he thought he had him bent over barrel. I think more than anything. Yeah.
He's the kind of kid that said, no, don't cry. You can hit me back. Like,
yeah. As he punches you again.
And then he starts crying up a storm.
Yeah, that's why it's setting him up to just get more towards the end of his. I think it's setting him up, like I said in our first episode. You asked us what we want to happen with the characters. And I want him to be full on, like, I am fully into the Cult of the Brotherhood kind of guy. And it feels like he's going that way, potentially. And I would love to see that. I just want him to just be full on, like, I'm in it.
I mean, it wouldn't be out of character for him, you know.
No.
Exactly. We kind of talked about this before. Like he clearly craves privilege and power, and now he finally has it.
Yeah, he gets called out by the head Brotherhood guy, and it's like, hey, he basically is like Palpatine, and be like, we'll rule this together, Vader, and he becomes his Vader.
Hey, buddy, you like power and privilege? You got some. You want some more?
Maybe he'll have a Vader like moment where he throws that guy down a hole to save Lucy or something.
I was gonna say he's kind of walking the Kylo Ren path. But like if Kylo Ren continued to double down.
So what you're trying to tell me is at one point he and Lucy are going to have a completely unearned kiss, and he's going to die after murdering President Eden. Okay,
maybe.
I mean, they are.
That sounds like such a legitimate plot point.
I mean, Lucy was already.
Somebody clip this. Somebody clip this, please. If I call it, let me know.
I think he's a realistic character, like in the Wasteland.
Yes,
he grew up in a land with like no morals, and yeah, I guess he has the Brotherhood of Steel as his influence, but that's not really the best influence now, is it? I think
not only that, but they say he was like beat the shit out of all the time. Like he was the guy picked on.
He's jaded. He's I actually gosh, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I guess that's it.
I forgot. I guess we're using D&D alignment rules. He's like true neutral. He's like a pure survivalist in that regard.
Oh, so I do remember what I was gonna say. So I actually watched an interview with the actors, and his actor said something like, I see a lot of Titus in myself, or Maximus. I'm like, after the fact, because I watched that maybe after like episode 2, but after the fact, I'm like, I don't know if he's the best role model, or I don't know if he has a lot of
not a role model,
he's trying to be,
or like good traits to him.
He's very human in that survival instinct, and like if you think about like they set up his background, like where he is that kid that's just the shit beat out of him all the time, and he's tired of feeling powerless, and like he's like, I want to be the one that is in power because then they can't hurt me. A lot of his motivation makes sense. Yeah.
Moving on from Maximus to Cooper the Ghoul, he was a really interesting character because we really did start. We get to know him as the Ghoul almost in the middle of his story and flash back to him pre-bomb dropping quite a lot, and there's quite a lot of heavy stuff there. This is the character that felt most like, and aptly, he was the cowboy. He felt most like the black-hatted man from season 1 of Westworld, the kind of like the linchpin of it all. He started off as a very, like, he seemed like a very one-note character.
He came off as a bastard. He was a total bastard first.
And
he still is.
Yeah, he got the most development, but he's still he's still a bastard.
Yeah, like,
Cotton, what did you think of the Ghoul?
The Ghoul is the best. He's awesome. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't like character development. Who gives a shit? He's just awesome. No, but no, what they do with him,
folks,
with Cooper, because all of his because obviously once he's the Ghoul, like he's the Ghoul in the show, he's unchanged. That's who he is now. So him as the Ghoul doesn't really change at all over the course of the show. But we get to see what led to him being that pre-war stuff, and he does learn some shit over the course of that, because he seems like he's got a pretty idealistic life. He's a fucking movie star or TV star, whatever they are. He's a big star of the screen. His wife's very successful and high up in Vault-Tec, and they seem to be living the dream. But obviously things are not as they seem for him, unfortunately, and he has to grapple with the reality of what the world is versus like him being the ultra patriot guy of like, I'm the cowboy and whatever, I'm the one putting out all this propaganda like material, and now I'm like, oh wait, maybe what I was doing was bad. And coming to grips with that slowly, because he doesn't want to, he rejects it, and he's like, fuck this. Like when he gets invited to basically they say they're not communists, but that's how they always say, these fucking commies that are trying to say there's anything wrong with Vault-Tec or the country or anything. And he's almost immediately like, these guys are fucking nuts. I'm out of here. But gets convinced pretty quickly that maybe not, because he knew. I guess this part of it had to know, like, yeah, this is kind of fucky what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I before you go further in that, I did want to say, like, he's an absolute piece of shit, like you said. And honestly,
I mean,
like,
I don't know.
I think he is. I didn't like him that much, actually, as
You
a
did?
ghoul. No, I
Oh,
thought
don't
he was a
care.
dick, and I'm like,
How
why
dare
are you
you.
such a jerk?
Hey,
But
I'm saying I don't care how good a person you are. If you start eating people, I think your karma drops.
well, here's the thing.
maybe.
After I thought about it a bit, and after you see more of his backstory fleshed out, you start to realize why he's such an angry dude, and like he's
Yeah.
had like over 200 years to think about all this shit that's happened.
That
So
and
obviously he's gonna be like, he just doesn't care.
well, I think it's that, and like I think there's a certain detachment he has to stuff. Like with Lucy, it's like either she's gonna learn or she's fucking dead. So
Yeah.
hopefully she learns, and if not, fuck it, it's not a problem I have to deal with anymore, kind of a thing. Because like if everybody around you is dying, or you just outlive everybody or whatever, like one random person is pretty meaningless to you to you at that point in your life. So that disregard he had for it just kind of made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll continue talking. We'll continue to start talking about Cooper as we move into the full season ending and the future of the show discussion. So here's the absolute last jump off point for anyone who's still watching that doesn't want the end of it spoiled. But I think that it's definitely, he has such a jaded approach to everything, you know, knowing what he knows, hearing about Voltek's plan, not just to set up and distribute these screwed up Voltek experiments, but that Voltek, I guess, implied that they were the ones that dropped the bomb.
Oh no, they flat out
Yeah.
said it.
It's
Yeah.
quite the revelation, isn't it?
Mhm.
It, you know, I'm not like super huge lore nerd with Fallout. I know a lot of it, but it's always been blamed on the Chinese.
Mhm.
The Chinese
But I
communists,
wonder
yes.
if that's like, I wonder if in the games that was like confirmed or not, or what. But I really
It's-
like this spin on the
It's
whole
it's
instant.
I think it was a
very
fan
much,
theory.
well, it was in one of the Fallout games that there was text logs that you could read of like the exchange and the progress, and then those do say that China dropped the bomb, but it's a very like history is written by the victors, and I
Victors.
don't think that Vault-Tec has ever seen themselves as not the victors.
Yeah.
Which you do bring up a good point though, because yeah, the only records that would be available would be in Vault-Tec computers, and why would they say we did this?
Yeah.
That would
And that was
be-
us, guys.
Yeah. So that was like really one of the big, you know, season ending revelations that we did get. One of the other revelations tied to it is the secret of Vault 31, that these are all sequential cryostasis of just management from pre-war.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
pre-war Vault-Tec.
Oh yeah, yeah. The big reveal was clearly like Vault 33 and 32 were they were not control vaults. Like we kind of knew that already, but it's like, oh, it's Vault-Tec management that's in 31.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of the experiment is also one of those really funny, like monkey paw wishes. It's like, we're going to leave behind our best and our brightest. And it's like, well, of course, then the offspring are going to like suss something out, say something is wrong, and be the ones to track it down. Like you've literally bred them to be the smartest and the best. And it's
If
funny
you buy
that they're
into it.
undoing.
Yeah. It's one of those cases, if you buy into that really creepy genetic stuff, you're kind of, you know, screwing yourself over. And if you don't, well, you know, human nature is going to human nature.
Yeah. One interesting part with that revelation when they drop the bomb, they have, and it's part of a boardroom that Cooper's listening in on, and it's got a bunch of the other big companies up there, and Vault-Tec needs money, and to convince them that they pay them, they're like, "We'll give you some vaults that you guys can do whatever you want with. We all need an experiment for what's going to be the savior of humanity, of the country in the future, and you guys can do whatever you want." But it's interesting with you when you contrast that with what what's her dad's name? Lucy's dad's name says
Hank?
Hank says, where he's like, the problem is factions. Like, we just need to eliminate all factions, and if we're the only ones left, there's no more conflict. And it's like, well, you guys, prior to that, you sold all these vaults to companies with different ideals. They're obviously going to have factions around the country already.
But Alton, you don't understand. You're adding a nuance to things. The point is, if we are in charge, we control things. What's the matter? Capitalism good.
My guess would be that Vault Tech did something to those vaults to fuck with their stuff. They sold it to them with the knowledge that something's going to go bad for you, or we've already preset it up to fail, or something, because we want to be the winners in the end because we have the best idea. Because obviously Vault 31 and 33 where Lucian stuff's from, like, that's the idealistic, this is what the perfection of it would be, and that's why the execs are the ones running it and stuff, like, this is what we want it to be.
Yeah, Cooper's wife, I think, even said, like, the best possible outcome for us is if we get into, this overseer thing.
Yeah.
Because
buds.
Buds, yeah. Well, if I may briefly, actually, since you did bring up that sort of Doctor Strangelove-esque war room bit of Vault-Tec, yeah, very on the nose.
And they had a guy, the shadow guy up top.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. Well, first of all, we're not going to linger too much on it, but it was also really cool to see, like, a lot of deep cut with the representatives, Repcom, Big Mountain, there around the table. But it was also the sequence where the show practically, like, turns to the camera and flat out, like, states the big theme the show was kind of exploring, and finally dropping the one line everybody likes to quote on the show, where they drop the "war never changes" line, and it felt earned to me, because it really felt earned, because if anybody here has played any of the Fallout games, usually the preamble with "war never changes," it's always this big preamble that kind of sets up a theme or an idea the game is going to explore. And in the show, in the season finale, it's basically, they flat out look at the camera and say, "Late stage rampant corporate capitalism will doom us all, and this will doom us all. War never changes."
I have a question. I don't know if it feels a bit like plot hole almost. And so, like, at the beginning, the very first scene of the show, basically the bombs go off. All that happens. You have Cooper escaping on his horse with his daughter. And now, if his wife was in cahoots with Vault Tech, wouldn't she have made sure that he was in a vault, or his daughter was in a vault before all that happened? And where was she? Like, so we still... Okay, go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think it's kind of implied that Cooper found out what happened. He found out what happened in the season finale. But if you recall, there was like been episode 1 where they were marking, what's Cooper doing a birthday party, alimony apparently. So that might imply that they got a separation, and he stepped away from it. He wanted to get away from the whole hullabaloo. So maybe they'll explore that in season 2, where maybe we'll see more about him at least attempting to reveal Vault Tech and it falling apart, which I think. Which could potentially lead things going into next season, because if you recall, he's still looking for his family. So it's obvious, as you kind of said, okay, clearly they got into the program, which may mean they're either in Vault 31 or they're somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So
I think we've not seen the last of the pre-war scenes with Cooper. Yeah. So I think, like, that divorce stuff. I mean, if Vault-Tec knows when the bomb's dropping, because if they dropped it, if they're the ones that caused everything, then they know when it's happening. So his wife probably knows when it's happening. And obviously his daughter gets taken from him at some point. And I'm sure there's going to be some Vault-Tec goons that come and scoop her up, and he gets abandoned. Because obviously he gets exposed. He becomes a ghoul somehow.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll see more of what led to that kind of thing happening. And he seems to think that Moldaver or whatever had the answers or knew something. But too late. Sorry.
I will admit, though, if we're still talking briefly, about this finale, it was also kind of poignant and also pretty powerful when it came to everything revealed with the NCR and what happened with Hank, because that, I think, might be a bit of a plot hole. Now I'm thinking about it, since you're kind of talking about it, because it's basically implied that Vault-Tec saw that the NCR was happening and Shady Sands was becoming a genuine sort of rising of a new form of democracy. And then Moldaver mentions that Vault-Tec then bombed Shady Sands, and we see the aftermath of that. And I'm like, wait, vaults have access to nukes after the fall? What happened?
I mean,
There's a lot of nukes out there.
I wouldn't be surprised if they set themselves up to have an arsenal at the ready if they were to need it to be. And if 31's where all the important people are, they would know that, I would assume.
Yeah.
And I don't even think that it was anything as large as Vault-Tec saw the NCR and wanted to like shut that down. I think that it was as petty as Hank wanted his kids back and knew that his kids wouldn't come with him, so he stole the kids and then blew up
that was
the
the
town
pretext.
and then re-indoctrinated them. Like, I don't think that it was. I think that he was trying to kill one person and he blew up everyone.
Well,
he's a real piece of shit.
but also there was he's the one that says that like you have to eliminate all factions, and if they are presenting a way to run a society that is counter to what Vault-Tec's doing, they need to be gone. And he just made it happen a little quicker.
But pretense or not, it's still very damning of Hank and of Vault-Tec's whole philosophy. Like the NCR, from all intent and purposes, what we knew, seemed like a genuine new beginning for humanity, and Vault-Tec being petty, assholes, thinking it's not our way of doing things, so you're done.
Yeah, but I think that's the show definitely wants to think that. I think with the NCR people, like they are presented as these are the good guys. We have the nice idea for society. Look, we relit Los Angeles and we're doing good things, and we had this idealistic society that your dad fucking bombed and stuff. But remember that cult? I don't think that's the last we heard from them, because I think it's going to be like, hey, the NCR was great, and fuck you, Dad. You made this not happen. You're the worst. And then it's like, well, actually, she's also fucked up.
Well, I was going to say,
that's probably what's going to happen.
What I was going to say, idealistically, the NCR wanted to get that MacGuffin technology going, but remember, the Brotherhood controls it now.
Now they have it, yeah. So that's Vader has access to the Force now.
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably going to be as the Brotherhood splits and it becomes two sects with this like weird radicalist movement within it. I have a feeling that the new priest and Maximus are gonna use that as leverage to take over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, they said it pretty early that whoever has that controls the wasteland.
Yeah.
By the way, if Shady Sands sounds familiar to anybody, it's actually a settlement from Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. And mentioned in the other games, which I thought was a nice callback. Although I don't know if they set it within the same video game universe or if it's its own universe, but I think that a lot of fans will find that's pretty cool.
I think according to press material, I think they kind of said it's set in the same universe, but it's in the same universe, and they're just telling a story in a part that hasn't been explored in the games yet. So I guess that kind of tracks.
Yeah. So we've kind of discussed what we do know and what was revealed from the season ending, but there's still a number of unanswered questions. It's one of the big ones, and it'll be the big question that leads into the next season, is who is in charge of Vault-Tec in this day and age? And I have a feeling that it's gonna be whoever that shadowy man was in the back of, or the shadowy figure in the back of the conference room.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's probably where he's gonna be one of those consciousnesses that lives in a computer kind of thing.
Oh my gosh.
In a jar.
The Brain in a Jar Collective. I will love it. I would love it if they bring those up, because if I might kind of steal the spot a little bit, I really did enjoy the first season. I do think definitely check it out, but I do wish I wish it gets weirder. I hope it gets weirder going into future seasons. Like I want to see more Robotron. I want to see more Robotron stuff. I want to see some implications of alien stuff. Like we got like a Brain in a Jar Roomba with Bud, and I'm like, okay, that's a little bit weird, but can we get a bit freakier, please?
Well, because if he needs to be around the whole time to run and everything, that's the only way I can see it happening, right? So he'll be maybe the prototype of that, whoever this man is.
Watch it be like the president of the United States or some shit. That'd be like totally Fallout, wouldn't
it? Speaking of the brain in the room and Vault 31, though, we've also got Norm, who is Lucy's brother, who found his way to the secret, and the season ended with him getting locked up and offered a cryopod. So
He's a great character. Actually, he might be one of my favorites because of how smart he is. He's also right. I mean, he might be the smartest person in the vault because everybody else is so brainwashed. And I was actually glad you brought that up because we don't know what's going to happen to him, and obviously it's very open ended. But
it's very open ended, and plus there's still the matter of the Raiders, who we know were like allied with Moldaver. They're still in Vault 32.
Well, they got poisoned.
Yeah, right.
They died ages ago.
And we also don't know who did that. Like, was it Norm or was it the new overseer?
It was totally the overseer.
It was the overseer. It was the overseer. Come on.
I mean, and we also kind of learned that they weren't Raiders; that they were just NCR.
Yeah, there was Moldaver, who was NCR. So yikes.
So it pivots that whole start of the show on its head. Now knowing that technically these are kind of the good guys, and they're coming after, and
they're presented as the good guys anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, shades of gray.
Yeah.
And then
they're idealists as well, just a different flavor.
And then kind of the final thing, as we have wrapped up this season and look forward to next season, that final shot, the tease of the Deathclaw skull and heading towards New Vegas. So I did do some looking into this, and the year that the TV show is set in is 2296, and the game Fallout New Vegas is 2281. So the events of this season, assuming that they don't do any other time jumps, will be 15 years after the game took place.
Yeah. So no more Mr. House. He dead.
R.I.P.
It also explains why we didn't hear about Kaisar's Legion. So.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point. I would very much like to see. Well, I would have liked to see them, but I guess that kind of gets a little messed up in the games.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to learn what like the true canonical ending of New Vegas is?
Yeah, maybe.
I imagine they're going to do the D&D thing. We're like, yeah, some stuff happened 15 years ago, but then anyway.
Are there any parts of New Vegas that we're looking forward to seeing, or of that region of the world?
The only good part about that game is New Vegas itself. So, everything else is boring. That's my hot take.
Nuclear take 15, 14 years after the fact. Way to go.
And it is also kind of crazy. I mean, because there has been news that's come out on this day that we are recording that that the Fallout TV show has accepted some tax credits for filming. So it looks like they're steamrolling straight into season 2 of production.
Yeah.
But knowing that Fallout New Vegas came out in 2010, it's going to be like 15 years after the game that season 2 will be happening, which is kind of a little bit of serendipitous.
Yeah.
That is fitting.
If I may kind of maybe provide a bit of a hot take regarding the reveal of New Vegas. So revealing that Hank got away and has something else up his sleeve, like leading that in season 2, I'm okay with that. But for me, the reveal of New Vegas as the final shot of the season for me it felt a little too much like leading the fans by the nose. Like we kind of discussed this before, but like prior Easter eggs and fan service like moments and little like winks and nods made sense in the scenes where it happened. Like its texture, its world building, it's there. Like there's very little in terms of, hey, recognize this, fans, shots. There's like a bobblehead here and there. But for me, the final shot of New Vegas felt a little too much like, hey, diehard fans, check out this thing that's going to be a big deal. Come back. And it felt a little too much. It felt way too much like fan bait for me personally. Like there's plenty of story potential that can happen there, but it felt a little bit too much like a signpost.
Doesn't it make sense though that a established civilization in the Fallout universe, which is pretty sparse, like look, nukes dropped and a lot of people are dead. Of course, some pivotal events would happen in a nearby city that's populated and already has some lore to it, like from the games.
Vegas is not far from LA, really.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Well, once again, geographically and storyline wise, this all tracks. But actually, come to think of it, though, this is something that is kind of intriguing. That the more I think about it, guys, because I think somebody here in this chat mentioned it kind of looked like Seattle at first.
It did, but it wasn't. I thought it was the Space Needle.
But that does bring up a good question, though, because we've seen New Vegas in the games with the lights and everything else and the walls, but the shot of the city we saw, it looks like it's kind of been blasted to hell. So.
Yeah, I wonder whether that's just because it's daytime that they don't have the lights on. They definitely still had all the walls up around. I too looked at that and went, "Is that?" My brain went to, "Is that Seattle?" Because I thought, "There's no way they're doing New Vegas." And then I, pulled up an image, and then even like the first clip of the credits is a signpost saying "Welcome to New Vegas." So it definitely hits the nail on the head.
And I think that's kind of echoing what I was feeling throughout the season, because everything up to this point was like there were sparse bits of fan service, but there was a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of new directions the show was taking, and then right at the very end, it went back to something that the people are familiar with, and it kind of felt not necessarily like a step back, but it kind of felt like an okay kind of moments.
I wonder whether this is because, it's no secret that there has been fan campaigns, especially now that Obsidian and Bethesda are both owned by Microsoft. There's been so many fan campaigns over the years to let Obsidian do a New Vegas 2. Now that Obsidian is doing Outer Worlds and they're Avowed. I wonder if this is their kind of way to say, look, Obsidian is not going to get a chance to do a New Vegas 2. They're doing their own thing, which they are 100% allowed to do. Here, you guys can have this in the TV show.
Here's your continuation. Here's your...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's the most recognizable Fallout place, probably. I mean, obviously, like,
because
Fallout
people
3
like us
taking
won't
place
shut up
around
about it.
DC and stuff, but like it's got the most iconic like little skyline of a Fallout place. So I don't know, it makes sense to me why they do it. I mean, if it's one thing to look forward to, because there's not much to point to, as you made the point at the beginning and in our first episode, Fallout's about its setting and the universe, and New Vegas is by far the most recognizable settlement or setting that there is in Fallout. So there's not much else that you could easily point to have fans look forward to as a little bit of a teaser. Because what else could they? We've seen most everything else, unless it was just Hank like in the middle of a desert and a death clock starts running at him. And oh fuck! And it ends there or something.
He's like, it's like, yes, here we go. 5 seconds to season 2. Castors.
ends like Rocky, where he's punching the death claw in the face or something. And that's
okay. That would actually be pretty cool.
That would have been pretty actually awesome. Now I think about it.
But so as we wind this down, I want to kind of the same way that I asked you guys at the end of the last episode, A to E scale. How do we rate the whole season? Tyler, I'll leave you for last because you've actually written our review, and people can go and check out the review. It should be live on the site right now. So, Austin, how about we start with you? A to E, how do you rate it?
Yeah, I think it's fair to give it a solid B. Like, there's some things that you can probably take issue with, but like for the most part, it was great adaptation, good show. I think I took a couple points off because I didn't see Todd Howard, so that's kind of like
that was my question. Anybody see Todd anywhere?
Did not see him.
I was looking out for him.
I didn't see him anywhere.
I might be
under
willing
some makeup somewhere, probably.
I might be willing to raise my score if somebody spots Todd Howard. Otherwise, well, sorry.
Otten, where are you putting this?
I think this is a pretty solid A show. There's obvious criticisms with it because there is with anything. But if I'm looking at how I would like to see any kind of universe adapted, let alone some video game universe, this is the one I'm going to look at of how to do it correctly, because it respected the source material in a really good way, and didn't just like poke fun of how stupid some stuff, because there's a lot of insanity that's dumb in games. That's kind of the point. But so many like movies or TV shows like poke fun and be like, look at how fucking stupid these nerds think like this thing. There was nothing like that going on. Like, it was just like, oh no, we get the vibe of this and we are going to embrace it wholly. Had good
Yeah.
character work, good acting, great set design, great effect. Like, I can't ask for much more than I would want if I'm looking for a Fallout adaptation. They did it really well. Could it be done better? I mean, probably by somebody. I don't know, but it was done really well. So I can't ask for more, I don't think.
Yep. I too am going to go with an A. I think that just the three main storylines were really interesting, and I did really love that dynamic of them shifting in between one another. It did kind of it didn't get lost in the separation the same way that like Game of Thrones did, and I really enjoyed that like tight knit like core cast that you need to focus on that was very Westworld. The fourth like mystery subplot in the vault was just a little sprinkling on top for me. I love theory crafting. I love a good mystery. And you know, the effects were all so much fun. It was so reverent in its irreverence of the source material.
Yes.
Tyler.
I will have to say, overall, my opinion, I will have to give it an A as well. But I would probably say not an A plus, but like an A. But like just
solid A.
Yeah, solid. I would definitely say it's a solid A. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and I do think you and I are echoing the same sentiment on. In that the showrunners understand the source material, they understand the core themes, they understand the not just the aesthetic but also the spirit of the series, and there's just the right amount of tongue-in-cheek stuff to it. There's none of that MCU irony, eye rolling. Isn't this wild? They don't do that. They don't do that. They understand where it needs to be serious, where it needs to be smart, and where it can be a little goofy. And the character stuff is good. That's good television. Like you don't have to. It's not even a matter of adaptation at that point. It's a matter of what is compelling television, interesting characters and interesting situations, and we get plenty of that. Mm-hmm. And the intrigue is all there. My complaints are minor and ultimately kind of boils down to taste. Like I said, I feel like things kind of got lost in like the middle couple episodes. But as mentioned before, Vault 4 kind of felt a bit like a cul-de-sac. Not a bad thing, just a bit of a cul-de-sac. Good character development, good development, good theming, just a bit of whatever. And some of the commentary, some of the original like commentary I feel it can be a little weak in spots. And there's also a bit of production design, I feel, where due to cost or due to, I guess, just production headaches, some of this it's kind of lacking when it comes to some variety. Like we mentioned before, it's a setting-driven experience. New Vegas has Novak. Fallout has Megaton. The closest thing to a spot to an area I think where they try to be a little bit sort of commentating is a place just called the Government with Goggins speaking to a governor, and I'm like that's
please, he was the president.
The president.
Yeah, it's the president. The government is going to do a thing. Like, okay, that's very first draft, but fine, whatever. You've got enough of my goodwill already. But those are small potatoes. Those are very small potatoes.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sitting around and chatting Fallout with me. Really looking forward to seeing other people's takes, and if anyone's listening to this and they've watched the show and you did manage to spot Todd Howard, definitely let us know.
Yeah.
But until then, we have been TechRaptor. If you're interested in checking out more news, reviews, previews of gaming and tabletop, be sure to head over to techraptor.net and sign up for our newsletter for our weekly blasts. Until then, though, have a wonderful day.
Take care, everybody.